Shalom Mashpaka. Today I want to talk about some more advanced level studying of the scriptures. I would particularly like to talk about something that's kind of a touchy subject about scriptures, being that I am also taking away from the New Testament, showing that it is pseudopigrapha, and following a apocryphal New Testament approach. There are apocryphal Old Testament scriptures as well, but there is something that is not spoken about the Old Testament quite like we are speaking about the New Testament now. The Old Testament is full of pseudopigrapha as well. Let's get into some studies about it. Pseudopigrapha are ancient scriptures that early Jewish and Christians writings that typically claim to be written by major Old Testament figures, but were actually composed later, primarily between 200 BCE and 200 CE. While most are non-canonical, some are considered scripture and specific traditions. The books typically classified as Old Testament pseudopigrapha include, and these are the major ones that we have today: 1st Enoch, 2nd Enoch, 3rd Enoch, 4th Ezra, 2nd Baruch, Apocalypse of Abraham, and so forth. There is also the book of Jasher and Jubilees. However, Mashpaka, we kind of already understand that these are pseudopigrapha, that they are written by multiple authors. What I would like to get into is what I'm about to say next. First, let's get into the Pentateuch, or the Torah, Genesis through Deuteronomy. Traditionally attributed entirely to Moses, scholarly consensus often refers to as the documentary hypothesis, suggests it is a compilation of at least 4 distinct sources, written at different times. Deuteronomy 34, most scholars, including many conservatives, agree Moshe could not have written the account of his own death and burial found in this final chapter. Passages mention cities like Dan or the list of Edomites kings before any king ruled over the Israelites suggest later editorial updates by scribes such as Joshua, Samuel, and Ezra. So, Mashpaka, I would like to bring to your attention something that is very secret at this time, that is not being shared. There is actually an even ancient Torah, or first 5 books of the Bible, that people do not even know about, that is hidden in Yasharal today in modern Israel by the Samaritans. The Samaritans of Israel are basically claiming to be the tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh, and they themselves have lived in Israel the entire time and have never been left. They were a part of the exiles, but they were killed off, and some of them fled into areas and stayed there. They never left these regions, and they claim to be the most ancient ancestors of all of Israel right now. And what they have in their possessions is not the entire Hebrew Bible, but what is known as the Abisha scroll. Now, the Abisha scroll is said to be 3,000 years old, and it is supposedly written by the great-grandson of Aaron, which was one of the priests that was accompanying Moshe, or Moses. This great-grandson wrote this scroll and left it in their possessions, and it has been hidden away and locked within their hands this entire time. The Samaritans are a very small group of people, ranging between 300 and 900 people, that are inside of a small area of Israel. They are said to reside within this area called Mount Gerizim in Nablus. Their scroll is dating over 3,000 years old and is the most oldest Hebrew writing that we have today. Here are some of the facts about it: the name, the location, what the Samaritans are claiming of it, that it was shortly written by Abisha after the Israelite conquest of Canaan, making it the oldest Torah. However, Mashpaka, the scroll itself has been dated to the 12th or 14th century. But that's just saying the writings that are there, that they have tested for it. There are multiple writings inside the scroll that date way older than that. And in fact, the writing is different from the Torah that is from the Aleppo Codex and the Westminster Leningrad Codex. The words that it's choosing to use is what matters. It has been a copy from a copy. passed down from 3,000 years, keeping the exact words. These Samaritans also use a different form of Hebrew, where the majority of Hebrews went to the square Aramaic. They kept the Phoenician or phonographic Hebrew. The Paleo Hebrew is what they have, and they modernized it. And that is what their Abisha scroll is written in primarily. Mashpaka, I want you to know right now that the Abisha scroll is straight up different. This is saying that there are approximately 6,000 differences in the Abisha scroll Torah, which is considered the oldest Torah ever, housed in Israel by a small group of about 300 to 900 people that have never left. The Abisha scroll is, I've read a few things about it, and it is claiming things as different words for the law and such things like that. Here are some places that you can find some records to read the Abisha scroll. I want you to know right now there is no legitimate copy that you can own unless you were to go to Yasharal, to Israel, and go into their shop and buy a handwritten book by them. They do not sell these books. They do not sell their Torah. They do not allow much photographic or viewing of it at all. But there are royal collections in the United Kingdom and Boston University, and then there are some academic transcripts that you can find. Good luck on your search. Not much, Paco. Moving back on topic with the Old Testament. Prophets that are attributed to being the complete authors of these books are not the complete authors of these books. Let me explain. Prophets like Yeshaya or Isaiah only wrote chapters 1 through 39. Chapters 40 through 60 were written by other authors that were not Isaiah. This isn't to say that you should stop reading them from Isaiah, but this would help that you would have a certain level of discernment, hoping that you have already read the scriptures and understood what they mean at this point, that you would not want to take away, but having roles of people that had their identities taken and used for completing these books. Be aware of it. Be aware of the interpretation of what that would mean when you read these scriptures. Prophets such as Daniel. There are later authorships included, closer editorials and things that were added as time went on to these scriptures, such as Psalms being written by multiple authors. Other prophet books like Jeremiah, the 12 minor prophets, Amos, Zechariah, Joel, Abadiah, Joshua, Judges, Ruth. I'm sorry if I'm moving fast, Mashpaka. Just pause the screen if you would need to view it any longer. Jonah, Zephaniah, Micah, Habakkuk, Malachi. These are all not attributed to the actual authors that wrote these books. This processing of editing the Old Testament books has been happening for a long time. It is a process known as redaction. And it's not simply to fix errors or fill gaps in times, but to ensure that the text remains meaningful for new generations of the Israelite communities. Updating languages and geography, responding to Babylonian exiles, theological and ideological shifts, bridging gaps and harmonizing. These edits were adding words and giving framings for the stories, for their timelines, as to fill in the gaps between from one scripture to the next scripture as what has happened. Finally, scholarly or devotional views. While critical scholars see these as human editorial choices, many religious traditions view them as process as inspired redaction, believing that Elohim guided these later editors to create the final version of the scriptures intended for faith communities. So much, Paco. I hope that this information is bad, but at this point, information is information. So I hope you can come to more truth with this information, such as if you are looking up information that was provided by Yahuwah HaMashiach and what he has been using from the Old Testament. He is quoting primarily from the prophets. And now that you know who has wrote these books and that some are pseudopigrapha, you can tell exactly what the prophets actually wrote themselves. So that is all, Mashpaka. Ahaba'u Shalom.